According to the book Master and Apprentice, written by Claudia Gray, Qui-Gon Jinn spent a lot of time teaching his Padawan, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the basic lightsaber techniques. This irritated Obi-Wan because he felt that he was ready to graduate to more complex lightsaber fighting techniques. But Qui-Gon insisted that Obi-Wan keep practicing the basics. Obi-Wan had been apprenticed to Qui-Gon for around 2 years now at this point, and he was feeling that Qui-Gon wasn't teaching Obi-Wan fast enough. Obi-Wan felt that he wasn't progressing fast enough in his Jedi teachings. Qui-Gon eventually explained to Obi-Wan why he'd been keeping him at the basic forms. He said that the basic lightsaber forms were the most fundamental forms of lightsaber fighting, and that they were the forms to most likely keep him the most protected in battle. Qui-Gon thought that if Obi-Wan practiced them enough, then the basic forms would become like second nature to Obi-Wan. He would become so grounded in the technique that he would become untouchable. Obi-Wan was thankful for the explanation, but admitted to Qui-Gon that he would have liked to have known that sooner. The book Padawan, which takes place 1 year before Master and Apprentice, actually references this. Since the book takes place 1 year prior to Qui-Gon explaining why he kept Obi-Wan at the basic lightsaber forms, Obi-Wan would therefore not know why he is still being taught them, rather than moving on to more advanced styles. The book Padawan actually makes note of this, with Obi-Wan resenting the fact that Qui-Gon hadn't taught him other fighting styles. In the book, Obi-Wan even asks Qui-Gon if they could do some saber training, thinking to himself how despite the fact that he hadn't been apprenticed to Qui-Gon Jinn for very long, he hadn't moved him beyond the most basic forms. I think that this connection is really cool, because Master and Apprentice came out well before the book Padawan did. A little plot detail like Obi-Wan's lightsaber training in Master and Apprentice was mentioned in another book that both came out years later but takes place a year before in the timeline. That shows us that these authors are aware of the lore and what other authors are writing, and I think that's a really neat addition to a book when an author makes note of other things like that in their own story. I know it may not seem like the biggest deal to some people, but little connections like that just go the extra mile in showing how much thought the creators put into these. There were some other little connections too, like how in both Padawan and Master and Apprentice, Qui-Gon is trying to push Obi-Wan to be more independent, but Obi-Wan is very much a stickler for the rules and always tries to do things by the book, which ironically just makes him more rebellious. But that's all I wanted to talk about in this video. I just wanted to gush about this really cool connection between two separate books. I highly recommend both of them. Padawan and Master and Apprentice are awesome.